All right. Beautiful Friday to everybody today. And it's a little later than usual, but I thought we'd try out some different times tonight. Had a lot of really interesting news come out this week from Google. So I thought that would be something we could cover this week, particularly because in last week's discussion, we talked about a pretty significant leap that Google made on the leaderboard in terms of interacting and human judgment of the quality of the various models. Greetings and salutations. I'm Daniel Lemire. It's great to be here sharing my discoveries in AI with you each and every week and through the channel. So let's just dive right in here and talk about Google's new and updated AI capabilities. The first one on my radar this week was a few days ago. Google released an entirely new capability with their video generation. So Google has their research division, Google Research, and essentially what they shared with us is this new video generation capability they're calling Lumiere. And basically, it takes AI and it is a competitor to some of the other video generation tools that we've seen. If you've been around the space for a while, you might have come across tools like Runway ML or perhaps Pika. They have the ability to generate the visuals both from a still and then extending that across many frames to create multiple seconds of video generation. And I've shown a couple of those tools on this channel. I really had a chance to play with Runway ML's brush motion tool set, which lets you select and highlight areas on the screen to animate. And I really enjoyed playing with that, as well as Pika. And Pika's great because it's totally free. Anybody can go out there and use that. I've shared that on previous discussions. But the disadvantage here is that Lumiere is not yet available for us to play with. So we're going to rely on some videos that are out there that have been shared about the tool. But one of the cool things that they're talking about, no one has had a chance to play with it yet because it's not publicly released. But one of the things that they're talking about is this idea of being able to extend existing video by manipulating the frames. So it's not simply just video generation, but it actually does more than that. And this is something that is totally new. What's really interesting about Lumiere and what I'm excited about is that it is a well-developed model. It's another extension of the diffusion model. Sizzle reel, if you will, a couple of minutes covering the features that it has. And they're really touting the high quality imagery in this release. And if you take a close look at the image, you can see that it really is a high quality image that they're producing. So I do think that they have some real credibility there. They've also extended some existing images you can upload into the tool and then give it a prompt to extend it. Now, we have seen that with Runway ML. That's not an entirely new functionality. And they've done a good job of creating some really nice video clips here to share so that we can have a chance to see what it is that they've been working on. And I like some of these reference-based presentations because it really lets you impact the style. Now, I haven't spent a ton of time with tools like Runway ML, and honestly, I'm very immature at using these capabilities because this isn't where I invest the majority of my time. But I do think that these look pretty good, and I think that this is going to be a really exciting introduction to the video space. I think that but the thing I'm most excited about here is that you can edit the video. So they're editing an existing video here, and it's almost like a special effects capability. Yeah, and Google Research has been working really hard in this. So look, it's nice to get to see the video if we don't get to play with it, but hopefully that will be something that will be released in the not too distant future. You know, one of the things about these announcements that we see so often is that it is well ahead of time that they announce what they've done before you have a chance to play with it. But they did build a really nice website for showcasing what it is they're working. They've actually given each of the clips here on the web page for the project site that lets you kind of look at them individually. And then, they showcase it from a here's what's possible, text to video, here's what we can do, image to video, and then the stylized generation, which I think is actually pretty unique. There's a lot of use cases where we want to do just a simple animation. So this is really interesting to me because when you want to do something that is highly stylized, I think that's a real challenge. But that's something that generative AI really excels at. And what's interesting about this is that you have a whole library of styles to choose from, but the methodology that they're using here is very different from what we've seen in the past with the model. So let me just continue running through my details here that I have shared because I had a few points on the slide to share with you. Um, Basically, what they did with Lumiere is built an entirely new system. So the cool thing here is that it's a high resolution and you can couple it with the styles, but it generates up to 5 seconds of video at a time. And so this is something that's a little bit new in having the opportunity to play with both Renway ML and Pika. You're limited to 3, maybe 4 seconds on occasion with that tool. So the fact that they've got it all the way to 5 seconds is, we're continuing to grow what's possible with these tools. So that's an exciting development. Now, if you saw my newsletter earlier at the beginning of the year, one of the predictions that I made is that we'd have a full length movie by the end of the year. And so I'm excited about seeing this continue to advance because that's what has to happen in order for my prediction to come true by the end of the year. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Keep watching what they have to share. And look, really an exciting announcement by Google. I think this is really interesting. And I can't wait to see and get a chance to play with this on a regular basis. Okay, so here's the next piece that we need to talk about. The other announcement that Google made is that they've been working on this image FX capability. Basically, it is the capability of creating these images, and we've seen this across all sorts of diffusion models. Basically, we're using AI to complete and build out the rendering of photographic information. So Imagen 2 has been released now, and there's a couple of websites that have been playing around with this technology and comparing it. And so this is a shot that compares Microsoft's Copilot using DALL-E 3 with the images that are coming out of Google Bard. And you see the quality of the image is actually not bad. And look, all of these tools are available to us, and many of them are available completely for free. I think that's really the most impressive thing about this is that everyone's trying to fight for the attention. And so we get the benefit of being able to play with these tools to a lesser degree, but to a significant amount. We can actually go in there, drop a prompt in, and it will kick out the results for us to really have an opportunity to learn what it's capable of doing. And when you spend a few minutes with these tools, what you come away with is really the understanding that it can do a lot, but it's certainly not perfect. And one of the biggest challenges that I've observed in sharing this with various people is inevitably they'll generate an output and it's not quite what they want and they want to improve it. But there's no system yet that we've been able to create that lets you do a prompt generation and then slightly modify what you've already built. Once the image generation is complete, you're set with what's possible. You can drop that into another tool, like, for example, Photoshop, and further manipulate the image after the generation. But you're kind of tied to whatever it spits out because there's no iterative prompt development in terms of improving the existing image. You really have to start over from the very beginning. Here's another set of images for comparison purposes. Here we have Google Bard on the left and Copilot on the right. And these are very good. I think this is really compelling. And what's really cool about them adding image gen now is it is a direct competitor to what you can get with Copilot or Chat GPT. So some really interesting developments here that we are all benefiting from, because now we can go to Bard and have it generate images. And we'll do that a little bit later in the broadcast. But I just wanted to bring this up. They released a number of critical Bard updates this week. And, I don't know if I've been using Bard on and off. I got to be honest. I, I haven't been a real fan of Bard. And the reason for that is that I have a very low tolerance for hallucination when I'm trying to look up some information. And for better or for worse, the challenge for me in using Bard is that I'm still in Google brain mode. In other words, when I go to Google, I'm thinking about searching the internet. I'm thinking about looking up existing information. But the truth is, I don't need to be tied into that model. In fact, one of the key use cases that I've shared with you all on this YouTube channel and through my posts on LinkedIn and across the things that I say and I'm attracted to on X, generative AI is really great for creating. You can actually completely sever yourself from any connection to existing things and use generative AI idea to hone your ideas, to come up with new ways of doing things, to challenge your existing mode of thought. And you can do that with Bard as well as any of the other AI tools. And so I it's sort of an just a mental thing that I have to overcome individually. But what what Google did with the update now is that this month they are providing their responses with the Gemini Pro model. And this is the model that Google has been talking about. They've developed several different models, and when they had their cloud event, they talked about Pro and Ultra. Ultra is still pending. That will happen probably later this year. We'll get into that a little bit more. But not only did they release this update that improved the Bard model and the quality of the responses that we're getting out of Bard, but they added 40 languages and now they've expanded it to 230 countries. It was only until very recently that you had to be in North America to take advantage of using these models. So now it is available globally across these 230 countries. Now, I don't know what the 230 countries are, to be totally honest with you, but they have substantially expanded where it is available. And then we've just talked about the image effects being added into Bard. So if you want to generate images in Bard, you can now do that with a prompt. And essentially, the way that they've connected it in is you start the prompt with create an image of, and their example was of a dog riding a surfboard. So you can immediately go to Bard. I've been using my Google account, of course, because I've already got that. In fact, one of the things I did earlier today was I turned on the Google Duet capability for my Google workspaces. I've been using Gmail basically since the day I got the invitation from Google back in the early part of the millennia. I think it was probably 2000, maybe a little later than that. But I've been a Gmail user ever since then. And when I had the opportunity to put all of my domain mail and have Google handle my mail for me, I jumped at that opportunity. So even my domain mail is through Google. So I've got a workspace, and I was recently forced into just upgrading to their underlying workspace capability. And then I upgraded that today to support the Google Duet AI, just so I'd have a chance to play with that and evaluate it. I'm doing the same thing with several other solutions. And I'm actually showing you this presentation through gamma.app right now. And I've been exceedingly pleased with the quality of information and utility of using gamma.app. So I'm not going to keep all of these tools, but I really like to have an opportunity to try them out and work with them. And I have to give a lot of credit to multiple different companies because they're sharing some really great information and giving you access to the tools. But when we were talking last week about the open source things, I shared with you the LMSys scoreboard. And if you take a look at the scoreboard that I have on the screen right now, let me make it a little bigger so you can see some of this find text. Basically, what we're looking at here over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Gemini Pro really move up in the stack. So right now it's ranked number 3 behind 2 GPT-4 preview models. The numbers have moved around a little bit, but basically there is a voting system. There is a this methodology that they're using is basically an evaluation of it from a human perspective. Well, one of the things I want to point out is yes, proprietary models are across the board doing better than the open models, but the open models are on the chart and the numbers change every day. So I think that's a key thing to watch. But the other is the fact that we also have cutoff dates for each of these models listed on the screen. And if you look at the Gemini Pro, it's online. They don't have a cutoff date for their model. So that is something that is distinctly different about what you get with Bard. It's always connected to the internet. There is no cutoff date. So you don't have to be concerned about when does the data behind the model end because it's consistently available. So when Google released some of these details, they gave us some benchmarks to look at. And here we have a comparison of Gemini Ultra versus GPT-4. The talk right now still is, look, we don't have Gemini Ultra to work with. It's not something that we have availability to. You can't use it today because they've not made it available for you and I to play with. But it did score better according to the benchmarks that they were running than GPT-4. So who knows how soon this will come out. Google has not slowed down at all in terms of the work that they're doing. In fact, I actually think that OpenAI really changed everything by releasing ChatGPT because a lot of the work that Google has been doing is really been behind the scenes. They've had the capability to do these kinds of things for quite some time. If you haven't had a chance to see the video of me watching the former Google director of AI talking about what's coming and the changing scope of artificial intelligence and what it means to you and I, you probably want to check that out because there's some really great things that he says, and he's also got a couple of really good books out there. Mo has been in the space for a while. Definitely one of the AI experts, really great at sharing what he knows and talking, and really a great guy to learn from. But we're not here yet. But here are the benchmarks that they shared earlier this year. So really can't wait for Gemini Ultra to come out so we can also have a chance to see it and play with that. But I mean, these benchmarks are really amazing, beating across the board in a number of different methodologies. Now, we did have some other developments in the open source space, but I'm not going to cover that this week. But we do have a Code Llama update that came out. Really interesting things there. Here's a quick video of the Google research team sharing some of what they learned in developing these Google models.
But also code, audio, image, and video. What's amazing about Gemini is that it's so good at so many things. As we started getting to the end of the training, we started seeing that Gemini was better than any other model out there on these very, very important benchmarks. For example, each of the 50 different subject areas that we tested on, it's as good as the best expert humans in those areas.
It's very rare that you can work on a technology at a foundational level and it simultaneously can impact all our products.
We created a family of models that can run on everything from mobile devices to data centers, each of which is actually best in class.
Gemini will be available in 3 sizes. Gemini Ultra, our most capable and largest model for highly complex tasks. Gemini Pro, our best performing model for a broad range of tasks. And Gemini Nano, our most efficient model for on-device tasks.
We want to provide the best foundational building blocks. And then we know developers and enterprise customers are going to figure out really creative ways to further refine our Gemini foundational models, and the potential's almost limitless.
So what you saw there was what this video came out during the Google Cloud event. And what I'm particularly interested in and calling out here is that they are developing a series of models that works across different devices. And what we saw this week is that Pro now is available. Gemini Pro is available on Bard. So that is directly accessible. I think we can anticipate that Ultra is going to be available more widely later this year. I don't think they're going to hold out on us too long in making that available. And then we've got the Nano, which we saw this week. There is actually the availability of Nano on some new Google Android devices. So we're talking about some major developments in terms of what Google has been kicking out. Now, the reality is what we've seen with Google is they have been constantly ahead in terms of the research and the development and the investment. In fact, they invented the transformer model that really largely made ChatGPT possible. Of course, OpenAI built the models and trained the models. So they're not to be ignored here either. And depending on how you look at things, you might see different characters in this game being in the lead depending on how you view the world. But what I want to call out here is that Google is certainly not done. I think there is a lot to be said for the effort that they are putting into this. And I think that they're really doing a great job turning out new products and showing us that they are still relevant and working very hard to develop the capability. And honestly, I'm excited to see what they're doing. And these announcement this week is further indication that they are working really hard and that they are not to be ignored. I think we could see some leadership change this year across the various parties that are known biggest players. I think the biggest surprise we'll have is open source. Who knows? But it's an exciting thing to watch. So here's some more detail from Google and their paper when they released Gemini, some of the things that they are putting together, leveraging not only a prompt that is textual, but also an image based. And so it's able to work on a multimodal level. That's one of the exciting things about Bard. It out of the box was multimodal. And of course, ChatGPT's worked very hard to turn on their visual functionality so that it's possible for you to do multimodal with ChatGPT as well. And of course, we have to talk about the Google video when they released the details. The truth is, when they released this video, they got a few bits of text here at the beginning that tell us that they've been capturing footage, and then they put it all together to share what it's able to do. But of course, what we've learned since then is that this is really a highlight reel.
All right.
They cobbled together.
Here we go. Tell me what you see.
This isn't
I
actually
see you placing a piece of paper on the table. I see a squiggly line.
So the good news here is that it is actually taking a picture that it's sent and it is responding to it. It is not verbalizing that response. It is not in this kind of an interface. This is a highly edited video. It's pretty impressive what it's able to do, but they're not at this level yet. Now, the question is, in the time that has been passing since they released the video back last month, or actually it was December, I believe, they may have to really put in the effort to scale this up. We've already seen with ChatGPT that you can actually have a conversation with ChatGPT. You can talk to it and it can talk back to you. So I don't think that's too much of a stretch. And Google has been developing these capabilities of natural language processing and having it talk back to you for quite some time. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But you do need to know that what they shared here wasn't fully baked and was very much them showing off what it could do. And here's some more benchmarks for you to look across the board. The benchmarks are interesting to look at, particularly because it gives us a wide variety of numbers to compare. If you look here, we've got Gemini Ultra scoring 90, Gemini Pro all the way back at 79. So if you compare Gemini Pro that you can access with Bard today with GPT-4, well, it looks like GPT-4 is still getting a better score. In fact, the couple of scores that it's actually beating on this chart is GPT-3.5, Palm 2, Claude, and then it blows Grok out of the water. Llama 2 is way behind, and Inflection 2 is also way behind. So really the only real close battle here is with GPT-4. Don't expect these numbers to stay static. I fully expect that we're going to have more advances against Claude. We know that what's happening with the XAI team and Grok is going to continue to develop. But do they care about these scores? I don't know. That's anybody's guess, honestly. So I think there's room for improvement across the board, and we're definitely going to see these numbers change over time. But let's keep going here because there's a few more things that we need to talk about that Google has been working on that I want to make sure that you're well aware of. The one that I noticed this week is that the Google DeepMind team has released this WARM system for AI model training. Now, WARM stands for Weighted Averaged Rewards Models. And the purpose of this is to solve the reward hacking that occurs. So basically, when a model is being trained, one of the tools that is at the disposal of the model creator is RLHF. That's reinforcement learning from human feedback. And one of the challenges that we have with that human feedback is, unfortunately, humans are not terribly consistent. In fact, there's quite a lot of bias in the things that we do and we say. And because of that, a model can actually learn to do what's called reward hacking. And essentially, what happens is that it is taking those scores from the human and it's using that to train the information, and it leads to inconsistent results. So they came up with this idea of WARM. And when they're doing WARM, what they're actually doing is they're taking and putting that into a proxy model to improve the basis of the model. And so basically what they're doing is they're taking multiple different trainings, they're putting them in parallel so that you can get a more consistent result. And then it's also reducing the memorization that's happening inside of the model. It's going deeper into the information, it's touching more of those parameters, and then they're able to further optimize what's going on there. So we're able to get a better, more consistent model out of what they've put together. And of course, this is a very lengthy paper that I'm trying to summarize in just a few bullet points. But, I've been really impressed with the Google DeepMind team and what they have shared. Not only are they doing really excellent work, but they're publishing this for the community to benefit from at large so that we can learn from the ways that they are putting these models together. And so what I really want to impress upon you today is that Google is not standing by the wayside. They're paying attention. They're putting the work in. They haven't given up. They're responsible for that transformer model. I don't think that they're done by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think that I would go so far as to say that I think Google is going to jump ahead of OpenAI in 2024 in terms of the services that they're offering, but I do think that they are worth watching because both the research and DeepMind teams are doing some amazing work that is definitely worthy of calling out. And I think that really should be something that we all pay attention to that doesn't get missed. So now that I've had a chance to run through the slides, let me pull up my browser view here. And I just want to show off a little bit of what I learned about Duet. Now, I've only had a few hours to play with this today as I turned it on. As I was looking through the services that were available, I got interested again. Like, what can I do with Duet? I think there's some interesting comparisons that can be made between Google's Duet and Microsoft's Copilot. I've also been playing with Copilot because that was recently introduced. And so what I did was I dropped into Google's AI using Duet and I plugged it in. I said, I want to do a talk about Lumiere. What can you tell me? What can I do to use this tool to help me get my regular work done? And that's one of the things that I'm excited about in doing all of the research and sharing the information here on the YouTube channel. Part of the work that I've done as an innovation practitioner is keep track of the latest information and build presentations and share this information with other people. The advent of these generative AI tools has really allowed me to accelerate the amount of material that I can cover in a short period of time. So being able to go and create a document using the generative AI is really valuable. And I've been playing with the Microsoft document integration of Copilot and having it generate documents. So I've got a better feel for what Copilot's capable of. And I thought, yeah, I really need to go see what Google has done. And others have talked about this a little bit. I have not done a lot of research on this, but I was really impressed with the quality of information that I got out of using the integration in the document. Now, that's the good news. Now, I have not played with the spreadsheets on either of the tools, neither Copilot nor Google, so I'm not going to cover that today. But I did have an opportunity to play with PowerPoint and having it generate slides for me. I went in here to Google Slides and started to build a presentation. I was actually thinking I was going to use Google Slides to present my information on today's YouTube video. And I went in here and I clicked on the generate an image, thinking that that was going to build me a PowerPoint. And I was, of course, very disappointed to discover that that was only going to generate an image for the use on an individual slide. So I actually took the output that came from the document and I started to paste it into the PowerPoint. And then it easily integrates videos. That's always been something that has been a core capability of Google Slides. Now, I have both of my children are in K through 12 education, and our school district has adopted Google's solution for the kids to use in creating their documents. And it's been kind of interesting to watch them use this because I have not been a heavy user of Google's suite, even though I've been a workspace user for quite some time. I have an affinity toward the Microsoft tool set because I've been a Microsoft subject matter expert for such a long time. I know their ecosystem so well because multiple employers of mine and even myself in my independent business have been a very heavy user of the Microsoft Office suite. In fact, that's what I grew up using. So it's very familiar to me. And I was very satisfied with it. So I stayed where I was. But I was very disappointed to discover that I could not generate a PowerPoint presentation using the generative AI. So that was really a letdown for me. But there's some other capabilities here that I think I'm going to have to spend some more time with to understand. It really does great at document generation. And look, that's the lion's share of what I do. So it might be a worthwhile thing for me to entertain. I it's entirely possible that I wind up not keeping any of them because I am so deep into Perplexity and ChatGPT, and I've been very satisfied with those solutions. Ultimately, it turns into a document or a web page, and that's a copy and a paste away. So we'll see where that goes. And look, I think it's interesting times because what this means is that you and I are going to benefit because these tools are going to compete for our attention and they're going to be something that we'll be able to choose from. I was a little disappointed with the price tag in terms of being able to use the Duet AI for Google. One of the disadvantages that Google has is that I'm on the very basic business level of the account because it's integrated with my domain. I really didn't want to give them any of my money at all. It's a minimum $12 subscription for myself and my wife that are using those email addresses. But to get the Google Duet AI for Google Workspace, I had to upgrade my account. So I had to double the cost of my Google services just to be able to turn on Google Duet. And Google Duet is $30 per user on top of that. So it is a significant leap in terms of the amount of money that I'm giving to Google. Honestly, $12 a month is not that much. But, look, I've already got another set of subscriptions and options that I'm using. So why spend it if you don't have to? If you're able to duplicate the functionality and get the same thing, well, that gives me some things to think about. The last thing I'll share with you is I came across this lifearchitect.ai. This guy, Dr. Alan Thompson, has been sharing his report card on how these various AI models are doing. And here he's rated Gemini Ultra. And really the only score that Google does really bad at is that they just haven't made it available for us to work with in terms of API and model development. We're waiting for that to come out. But I think overall, this bodes well for Google. They've got the capability to develop these kinds of models. They're doing it. They're sharing what they're about to release. We're just waiting on them to finally get that across the finish line. So hopefully we'll see something from them in the not too distant future. Exciting times in the world of AI. That's everything I have to cover for today's live. I see a few of you are online. I'd be happy to take any questions you have while you're hanging around. We've got lots of interesting things happening in the open source space. There's always a new announcement to cover. I had difficulty choosing between all of the different things I was going to cover today. So if there's something out there that you're interested in, let me hear from you. Drop a comment. Find me on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube, on the YouTube channel where AI Mistakes. All of those social media options are out there. You can find me on X, or formerly Twitter, at Dan Lumiere. Let me hear from you. There's lots of interesting things happening in the world of AI. I'm having great fun covering this stuff. And I know that you all have questions, and I want to make it interesting for you. I want to have a dialogue. I want to have a great conversation with you. If you haven't had a chance to go out and look at ai-mistakes.com, I've got a number of resources out there for you. Pick up the newsletter. I just turned out another edition of the newsletter a couple of days ago. If you're not watching me on YouTube, go take a look at the channel. There's some great stuff out there. I'm really proud of the content that I've been able to put together on YouTube. And then, of course, I'm posting on LinkedIn and Twitter daily. Lots of great things. And I love interacting with all of you over those various channels. So, look, thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But look, go have a great weekend. It's great to see you. I hope you're doing well. Go make some mistakes.